Another Dooley Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, welcome into another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI as always. And as always from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. We'll have Coach Spurrier on here. Can't wait to hear what he thought of the big night Saturday night. And then Robbie Andrew will join us for Yes, No Way, or Maybe. I got so many things going on. Sometimes I have a hard time remembering what is what. Tammy and Jason are producing today, so understand that they're going to do the best they can. We do want to say goodbye to Evan. Evan's not going to be with us anymore. He's got another job. He's going elsewhere, and he did a great job. So we're on episode 175, I believe. I think that's it. So it's pretty cool. I can't believe nobody thought we'd last this long. All right, let us go ahead. Oh, yeah, I wanted to tell you that on Friday, I think John Clay is going to join us from the Lexington Herald-Leader. He knows Kentucky very well. And see, their game, they didn't play great the other day, but they played okay. You know what I mean? I mean, they won. They played well enough to win, and that's all they really needed to do. It's going to be another very difficult game for the Gators. It is time for us to go to our hand law starting lineup, which we do every Monday and every Friday. And, of course, the starting lineup is presented by Hand Law, a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville. For some reason, I've got the slobbers going on here today. Okay, there we go. It's just, I don't know, it's just I'm spitting all the time. All right, here we go, the Hand Law starting lineup. Number one. Okay, the Gators won. That's number one. That's the number one story. Florida won the game that a lot of people picked them to lose, including me. But they got very fortunate. There was a lot of breaks that did go Florida ways. There were breaks that weren't going their way for a long time, like Keithy, I guess is how you pronounce his name. That tight end was ridiculous. Caught a ball and didn't catch the ball. It hit the ground. You could see it. Everybody could see it. Replay official probably going to the bathroom. He didn't bother seeing it, and that hurt Florida a little bit. But there were some other things that happened that didn't go their way. But then at the end, the biggest thing went their way. Also, the people at Utah believe that Rising got in on the third down play before Thomas definitely did not on fourth because he fumbled the ball over his back. On that goal line stand, but whatever. They didn't review that one either. So, and nobody in the booth for Utah called down and told Kyle Whittingham, we got to get this reviewed. You got to call timeout or do something. Nobody did. Nobody thought he got in. So I don't know. I don't know whether he got in or not. I watched it a couple times. It looks close. They were right there on it. They didn't call it in. But what a game and what a crowd. Crowd was unbelievable. The largest opening day crowd in Florida school history. And again, that is what you get when you schedule a Utah, somebody like that. You have a chance to have that kind of a crowd. If you were opening with Eastern Washington, even with it being Billy Napier's first game, it wouldn't have been 90,599, I think it was. I don't know if I wrote it down. Whatever it was, there wouldn't have been that many people there. And again, because a lot of times teams don't travel anymore. Tennessee fans won't travel when they come down here. I guarantee you when South Carolina and Missouri come here, there won't be a lot of them. There'll be like 3,000 or 4,000. There were a lot of Utah fans there. And I do want to say one thing. I feel terrible for Utah because that football team played its heart out, lost on a last-second play, and get to the airport. It's a little after midnight, and their plane wouldn't. I don't know if it wouldn't start or what, but anyway, their plane's is broken, and they sat in the tarmac for 4 hours on this charter flight, and then finally they had them come into the airport, and they laid around there for a while. And Florida was able to get. They made a couple calls, and Florida was able to get them rooms, and you know how hard rooms were to get in Gainesville Saturday night. And they flew out yesterday at some point in the afternoon. But that's just not the way you want to experience your game. But obviously the play by Bernie in the end zone, and they were running Keithy on all those crossing patterns. He couldn't quite stay up with them, but what a play he made there at the end. Great diving grab, and obviously Rising shouldn't have thrown that ball, shouldn't have thrown it there, and shouldn't have thrown it probably at all, trying to squeeze it in there. But it was just an incredible game. A lot of fun to watch. Okay, and you saw Ventrell Miller, what a difference. Now, again, there's one of the breaks that didn't go Florida's way. He's got the ball right here. Game's over. Couldn't hold it. Those things happen sometimes, and he was so mad, and the passion he showed. The fact that he got that mad meant a lot to me because he knew what that meant. So good for him. Also, all right, let me get to number 2 on the hand-loss starting lineup. What a night that was for recruiting as well. All those recruits there, they had a long list of big-time recruits at that game, including Cormani McClain, who's their number one target. But there were a lot of recruits there. And with the atmosphere that happened that last night, or Saturday night, with the, I won't back down. Even the Utah fans are going, this was the coolest thing I've ever seen. All these people singing, I won't back down. They loved it. All the hacks, writers, the guy who sat here last week, Josh Newman, enthralled by everything that they saw, and the experience of game day was unbelievable. And so I would say, if you don't want to come here and you're a recruit, it's okay. We're good. I mean, they're going to be fine. They're going to get enough great recruits. People are going to want to play here. That was the risk of, it's definitely a risk reward. And basically, Billy Napier hit it over the water, past the traps, and onto the green within 6 feet of the cup in the recruiting world, because that was such a great atmosphere. That should be a big advantage. We're going to see that pay off. But the risk is all those guys are here. Utah blows you out. Crowd starts booing. People aren't coming. And remember that when you boo, by the way. All right, number 3. I did want to point this out. Utah is what we thought they were. Utah is a very good football team. They came out in the second half and said, we haven't been running the ball enough. We're going to run it, and we're going to run it right down your throats, and you're not going to be able to stop us. And they did at the 1 foot line, but they ran right down the field. One pass in that whole first series. Luckily, Florida did get a little bit of a break there with the stop, and whether he got in or not, we just talked about that. But that tight end is an NFL tight end. The corner is an NFL corner. Rising is an NFL player. They've got a lot of really good. Veli's a really good player. They had a great scheme. They had a great plan. They just, Richardson was a little too much, but it was like Richardson and Rising were the leading. They weren't the leading rushers, but they were darn near it. Interesting that Tavion Thomas had 26 yards at the half, and that's part of the reason they said, let's start running the ball more. And they did good. So, look, I don't feel any differently about Utah than I did before the game. If I was still a voter on the AP poll, and I used to be, I would have them about 8th or 9th. I wouldn't drop them out of the top 10. They played their hearts out. They just had one bad play that cost them. That was it. And again, talk about discipline. And again, when I talked about how Utah is where Florida wants to get, and Florida may be really closer than I thought. Florida still had depth problems, and you saw that during the second half. But Utah had 3 penalties, and one of them was intentional, and that's what they do. They don't have self-inflicted wounds, and it was a good old-fashioned SEC type game. Maybe Utah should come to the SEC. Come on. Although I don't want to see Keithy ever again. That guy is just too good. All right, that is number 3. Number 4, on the hand law, 3 things. Certainly want to point out some of the other stuff that happened over the weekend. And to me, Georgia and Alabama have shown that they are the elite teams. Everybody else is playing for the college football playoff to get beat. I mean, for Georgia to do what they did, just destroy Oregon. I knew they would beat Oregon, but they destroyed Oregon, scored on their first 7 possessions. They're going to let Stetson Bennett loose. They believe he's a great thrower. He may not be big, and he may not be an NFL quarterback, but they're going to let him loose, and he's going to play. If he plays football like he did on Saturday afternoon, they're in trouble. And then, of course, LSU last night was unbelievable. How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you do what they did? And LSU, and it wasn't just the way they lost. It was that they weren't very good the whole game. Jaden Daniels was very unimpressive to me. FSU might be better, and that's something Gator fans don't want to hear, but they may be a little bit better this year, so we'll see how well they play. But it was other than that, there weren't a lot of surprises. The favorites continue to win, although that's another thing I was thinking about. When will I learn about college football? I was sitting here, what did I tell you guys last week? Those noon games stunk. There's not going to be any good noon games, right? And I was upset. Well, I had 2 TVs going. The games were great. The noon games were unbelievable. You had a 66-64 game. I think that was the score, 64-62 in North Carolina. You had what were the other games that came right down to the wire? There were a bunch of games that came right down to the wire that were way better than you thought they were going to be. And so I'm like, the 3:30 games, that window where you thought you had some good games wasn't very good. I don't think I watched 10 plays from the Georgia game because it was such a blowout. But one day I'll learn. Don't think you know how great a weekend's going to be or how bad it's going to be or how indifferent you are to it. Don't think you know. That's not what college football is. College football is, we're going to surprise you. We're going to make you freak out, believe me. And then finally on the hand-law starting lineup, I do know that I heard a lot of complaints from people, okay, about the stadium. And look, the stadium is getting this massive overhaul. It's going to take place. They think they'll have it done in 3.5 years. They're going to spend a lot of money on it because it needs. The Swamp is great, but it's not a great place to sit. It's not a great place to be around. The seats are 16.9 inches wide. My butt, not fitting. Jason's, no. Tammy's, definitely. But, I know that there were a lot of people complaining about the lines to get in. This is an issue they've got to solve, but they aren't going to solve it this year. But they will solve it. They're aware of it. Apparently, a lot of the seats had to be numbered the last minute because for some reason it skipped detail. That Billy Napier must not have been in charge of it, or he doesn't miss a detail. And when they did, they changed some of the numbers. So people who were always sitting on row 20 went to row 20 and sat in their seats, and the people would come and go, nope, that's not it. You can't sit there. This is row 19. So there was a little bit of that. There was first game jitters, kind of long lines of concession. Florida's working on all this. You're probably going to have to gut it out this year. But there have been some problems at Florida for a while now at that stadium. But that's the key. Is what Florida wants to do is you want to make everybody more comfortable, but don't take away from what the Swamp is, the core of what it is, and that is loud and right on top of you. You don't want to do what you did with basketball, where you ended up with fans, eating from a taco bar while the game's going on. That's not it. That's not what you wanted, and I think it's really decreased noise levels and everything at Exact Tech Arena. So we'll see what they do. They have worked with people who worked on Fenway, and I think Wrigley Field, and maybe Green Bay. I think so. They have been able to make it nicer, but still clean it up and make it a lot better. All right, but never lose what the Swamp is. We all know what it is. It's 1-0 right now for this year. All right, we got to take a break. That was our hand-law starting lineup. We appreciate hand-law, of course. We will take a break. And actually, Chris Ham was out there to watch the Artemis, and then it got scratched. I don't know what he did. Did it go up or not? I don't know if it did or not. The spaceship, Artemis? Yeah. Okay. Clearly, nobody knows. All right, and I don't either, so that should tell you everything. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back. Coach Spurrier will join us. I'm sure he's got a lot to say about the opening game, a Florida win, 29-26. You are watching or listening to Another Dooley Noted Podcast, presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. to go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Tebow Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Another Dooley Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life. And the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Pat Dooley's Story Time is brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics. Nobody knows how to provide pediatric health care for little gators better than Dr. Mike and the other board-certified pediatricians and the pediatric nurse practitioners of Eastlake Pediatrics. They have been providing personalized health care to the children of Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough counties since 2004. And with the recent addition of Dr. Chris, who is also board certified in sports medicine, they are now offering care for youth sports injuries as well. To learn more about Eastlake Pediatrics, call 727-372-6760. And to get to know them better, listen to Dr. Mike and Dr. Carey on their Peds and Pop podcast on multiple platforms. Gator football is back, and the best way to get exclusive insight is a membership in the Gainesville Quarterback Club. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you access to speakers like coaches, Gator greats, and more. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-person meetings or for non-locals via Zoom with an out-of-town membership. Right now, out-of-town memberships are only $150. Sign up by September 3rd and get entered to win 2 Champions Club tickets to Homecoming versus Missouri, speaker presentations, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org or call me, Pat Dooley, and I'll get you to the right people. Okay, welcome back to another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. And anytime Coach Spurrier is here, he, as always, is brought to you by Meldon Law. Meldon Law won't back down. And I don't know, I was worried, Steve, because my record since I retired from the Gainesville Sun was 6-10. So we're getting them back on the right track with a win there.
Yeah, it was a really, really good win, and well played as far as our guys. Well, I mean, they ran the ball a little bit better against us than we had hoped. But what we did, Pat, we maximized our scoring chances.
Yep.
I think we had a chance to score 4 touchdowns and got a 2-point play. Heck of a play by Anthony, which all of those one plays was the difference in the ball game. And Utah, they're a good team. They probably
That's what I've been saying. Yeah,
they probably outplayed us a little bit because they had 7 scoring chances, but they had to kick 2 field goals. They got 3 touchdowns. And then they were down there twice. We had the goal line stand and then the interception at the end of the game. So out of their 7 chances, they only got 26 points. And out of our 4, we got 29. And that was difference in the game. Reminded me of a couple of our SEC championship games. When we beat Alabama in '93, we had 4 chances to score and got 28. They had 4 chances. They got 2 field goals and a touchdown for 13.
Right.
And then even the Auburn game in the SEC championship of 2000, we had 4 chances, got 28 points. They had 4 chances, got 2 field goals, a fumble, and I think Lido picked one off down around the goal line. So if you don't score when you're down there, and we've lost games where we're down there.
That Notre Dame game. That Notre Dame game. Yeah.
Hell, the Tennessee game.
Yeah.
Last one I coached in the Swamp. We were down there 3 or 4 times and did not get touchdowns and end up losing by 2 points. So if you struggle scoring touchdowns, sometimes you're not going to win the game a lot of times.
Yeah, it was really tough. It reminded me of a game you had, although yours was even more of a problem at South Carolina. But in the third quarter of the game, Florida had 10 plays. Remember that game you played? I think it was Auburn. And you never got the ball in the third quarter because they had a long, long drive, and then the onside kicked. And so you never got the ball, or maybe you fumbled a kickoff return. You never got the ball.
We didn't have a possession.
Yeah,
and they only had 1 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's right.
It was amazing. Both teams just stayed on the field, and they got an onside kick.
Yeah.
The reason, but yeah, you can burn a lot of clock if you can stay on the field, make first downs, and make a bunch of third down conversions and so forth. But actually, the time of possession, I looked at the stats today and the first downs and all. It was actually fairly even.
Pretty even,
but, I mean, the big plays that Anthony Richard made, that and the goal line stand and then the interception, I mean, that's what made us a winner.
Yeah.
So I think it was a good win for us. And here's something I learned also, Pat. Billy Napier wins a whole bunch of close games.
Yeah.
His margin of victory in one-score games is something like 80%. I think he's won like 16 out of 20 or something like that. So that's a good omen right there if you in a habit of winning those close games, because we definitely going to have a bunch of those.
You didn't have a whole lot of them, though.
Didn't have a whole lot. We won 60% of the one-score games when I was here.
Really?
I actually went back and looked at it. It's easy to find all those things when you got all the scores right in front of you. But I guarantee you, Urban, he was good in one-score games too, and 1-point games or 2-point games. He was good at that. Some people say, well, sometimes you either got to be lucky or maybe you're a little smarter than everybody in those close games. Brian Kelly last night, I don't know if he was – I would have gone for the kick too. I would have gone for the kick. Yeah, because they had all the momentum, so they get into overtime. They maybe or probably could have won the game. I know one year we're out at Missouri, and we scored late and kicked the extra point, got into overtimes, and fortunately won it during the second overtime.
Yeah, it is interesting how that works. But let me ask you this. Being an offensive guy, what did you think of the offense they ran? I know it wasn't it was pretty vanilla-ish, I mean, they just were installing and got their offense in there. What did you think of it?
You're talking about the Gator offense?
The Gator offense, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we know those 2 running backs are good,
Yeah.
ETN and
Montrell Johnson.
Montrell and Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
So we got 3 outstanding runners in the backfield. So we got to give it to them and let Anthony fake it, and then fake it to them and let Anthony run all over the place and spread out and pick our spots to throw the ball. I'm afraid the other teams are going to start saying we can't let the quarterback beat us. So there may be more opportunities to throw the ball, more opportunities for those running backs to get more yards this coming week also.
Well, and that's when you watched them scrimmage, you said that they had the same problem they had last year, which was they don't have fast guys on the skill positions, but they found the thing. They found a way to make that work.
Yeah, I tell you what, and I bet they go back and look. Utah they covered well.
Yeah.
When Anthony was back there and had a little bit of time, there was nobody open.
Right.
I looked around, they had a guy undercutting the crossers, and they had guys waiting on this, that, and the other. So Utah did a good job of their scheme of pass coverage, I thought. So, but we hit some early there, and then we had that fumble, the opening drive. But we had a good-looking drive going then.
Yeah.
But we overcame it. And again, when you play good red zone defense like we did, and goal line, you get one of those, you usually win the game. I don't know why, but the football guys, they like those teams that play good red zone defense.
It kind of reminded me of an old SEC game before you got here, because it was like a lot of running and, play action passing, and guys were hitting hard, and it was certainly
it was a well-played game by both sides.
Only 10 penalties total. I mean,
Yeah.
Florida had 7. They had 3, and one of theirs they took on purpose because they were trying to draw them off sides, and so they got to delay a game. So that told you the discipline that team has. That they only had 2 real penalties in the whole game.
That's true. They were well disciplined, and I bet they'll go back and look what they did around the goal line, and wish they'd done something different, because they had first and goal at about the 2, and we stopped them 4 times. So that was 2 or 3 yard line, I think.
Yeah, Thomas slipping on that second down play helped a lot.
It helped a lot. It was a game, one play here, there, the other. We would have been a loser, but it all seemed to go our way. So maybe that's a good omen. But the big ones this week, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Eastern Division.
That's right.
If we're going to win the SEC, we got to beat these guys.
Yeah.
You got to beat Kentucky. I don't think we have ever won an SEC and lost to Kentucky. Do you remember that ever happening? No, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen right there. So anyway, this is a huge game this week. I think our fans will be pumped up even a little bit more. And we were really pumped up for Utah. So really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it is interesting because Billy's already said in his press conference today that, look, there's no crown going on anybody's head. That they need to take this, be happy that you won, and move on from it instead of saying, hey, look what we just did. Like, you haven't figured it out yet, okay? And that's something I know you had to deal with a bunch.
Well, when you win like we did, I think we're all smart enough to know a play or two go against us, and they win this game.
Right.
But we made the plays when we needed to, and I think that's sometimes good for the team to win close rather than blow somebody out and think, well, we're going to blow everybody out. But it was a really good win. Go back and see how we can get better, because we're going to probably need to play better against Kentucky this week.
Yeah, and Kentucky didn't look great this week. They didn't run the ball very good. Their offensive line wasn't as the usual Kentucky line. But again, I don't know. Do you believe in that wives' tale or whatever it is, that you get better, the biggest improvements between game 1 and 2?
Sometimes it goes that way. Not all the time, though. My first year here, we scored 50 against Oklahoma State. And then the next week, we really only scored 10. We blocked a punt for the other 7 against Alabama. So offensively, we got worse. But then again, we were playing at Alabama, a team that was defending conference champs, and they were Alabama, Coach Stallings and those guys. So that was a huge win. And even though I think we led the SEC in offense at the end of the year, at that game we weren't all that great on offense. But we made a few plays. Shane hit Ernie Mills on that big play. Terrence Barber, I think, got a touchdown. So it worked out, but we blocked a punt to win the game.
Yeah, I know.
And it's the only game in my life I think I've ever won on a block punt. And it was one of our biggest ever, because without that victory, we don't win the SEC that year. And who knows if we'd won it the next year, because once you do something, it's easier to do the next time.
Yeah. It's people were telling me they thought it was the loudest the place has ever been. I don't know. There's only so much level of loudness, but it was up there.
It was up there.
Yeah. But it's hard to tell. Like Auburn 2 years ago, the Mississippi game when McElwain was here was one of the loudest. That 91 FSU game, the 93 FSU game, when you had him at third down, that place was about as loud as I've ever heard it.
Well, Alabama, it was loud.
Yeah.
When Alabama had that first possession, but they went down the field and scored. And scored. And I looked up and I said, dang, they got 21. and we were one of the loudest ballparks in the country at that time.
Yeah.
So I think our fans said, "Hey, this yelling's not working against them, but we're going to get it maybe the next team or whatever."
Yeah. Did you think it was like right up there with all the other ones?
Oh, it was loud. I was sitting up there with Scott Strickland, and we opened the windows up, and you couldn't talk to the guy next to you or Jerry. So it was really loud. It was up there probably top 10 somehow, I'd say.
All right. One thing we want to do, we still got some more football to discuss, but one thing we want to do is our Campus USA Credit Union play of the game. And Coach can look at this, and this was what I determined to be the play of the game. And here's why it is. Here's the play here, Coach.
Yeah, 2-point play. Yeah, heck of a play.
And I've never seen a guy that wide open just standing there.
Well, I've never seen a guy pump and do that whirly bird and fake two guys out completely. You know, you see a guy jump like that guy.
Well, you know who that was?
He got two of them.
That's Diabate.
Yeah, it's one of our former guys,
Yeah.
somebody said. Yeah, he got two of them on the jump and the whirly bird, and Lee McGriff told me he'd never seen that, and I said, I don't think I have either. Now, you've seen, one guy jump and the guy come down and throw it, but to do...
Well, that's why you go to games, because
Yeah.
we still haven't seen it all.
Yeah.
There's something else that's going to happen we've never seen before.
Yeah, that play was one of the big ones. His 4th and 2 run was a big one.
Yeah.
And his 45-yard on a pass play coming out the left sideline and going all the way. So those 3 plays by Anthony were, without one of those, we don't win the game.
Well, the reason I chose that one was because if they don't get that 2-point conversion,
That's right.
it's a 1-point game. They're not even throwing the ball in the end zone there at the end.
They're
Utah's
lining
just
up the
kicking the
field
field
goal.
goal,
Yeah.
and that's a game,
Yeah.
and you've lost a game. I thought we were going to overtime, but I was just hoping Florida would knock down a pass, but because
that's a pick.
it was a pick, and it was a great catch by Amari
It really
Burney.
was.
He'd been getting burned. He lived up to his name by that tight end. Yeah, that tight end was so good.
Yeah, he was a good player.
They used him a lot like you used Doring and Kirkpatrick a little bit.
And they're tight and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the guy was sort of hooking up around the goal line, and he was backpedaling, and he stumbled over a guy's foot.
Yeah, he did.
And sort of fell, and our guy made a heck of a play. He had to dive in there and get that low ball. So it was another play of the game right there. We had a bunch of play of the games, and that's why we're winners.
Yeah, handful of plays, I always say, and a handful of
Definitely,
games. That's how you
definitely
win.
this game.
That's how you win. And obviously with Kentucky coming in here, they won. Vanderbilt's 2-0. How about them? Beat Elon.
Yeah, they get into their schedule, this week, I guess?
South Carolina.
Yeah, starting this week and so forth. So, but they do look a lot better.
Yeah.
They're throwing the ball around. I tell you, I've been watching all these teams. Heck, I watched Jackson State yesterday. Deion Sanders' kid, and they look like all the teams now. They move around. They got guys going in motion, and his son, he can throw it and he can run. I tell you, offenses are a lot better than they used to be. They really are. And very unusual. Utah, they got under center, just ran the off-tackle play.
Yeah.
They ran some old-style football, too, and they were very good. So it is pretty much an offensive game now. You need to outscore the opponent, and, you can get mad at your defense all you want to, but they're doing the best they can. It's hard to stop some of these things.
You mentioned motion. They were talking a lot during the game about Florida, how much motion Florida was running than they had before. How did you ever feel about motion? Did you think it helped?
A little bit.
Does it help you see what the defense is?
Well, just you do it to see what they do. If they don't do anything, you can maybe get an extra guy over there or so forth. What a lot of guys, they'll have run that guy across, and he idles around right there, and then they give it to him on that little jet sweep, they say. But in all the offenses, except Iowa, they're still playing Iowa offense.
Hey, they scored 7. How'd they score? A touchdown? No.
2 safeties, two safeties.
Safeties.
Yeah, they're still a little probably behind times. But all these teams now have got these offensive coaches, and Sean McVay of the Rams, they play Thursday night, by the way, and you'll see what they're doing, and that's what everybody's going to, and it's tough on the defenses, and now they got quarterbacks like Anthony Richardson that can run all up and down the field.
Right.
So I'd hate to be a D coordinator. It's I mean, if you can dominate up front your D linemen, they can't block those guys, and you got a fighting chance. But asking your defensive guys to cover everything nowadays, it's hard to do.
A little scary what Georgia did. I mean, you thought – I knew they would win that game. I knew they'd win it easily. I didn't think it would be like that, where they would go 7 consecutive touchdowns in their first 7 possessions.
Yeah, that was a little surprising for a lot of people. I heard one of the announcers say that he did not realize Oregon was this bad or that poorly coached. He sort of got on their coaches a little bit too. But it was a mismatch from the beginning.
Yeah.
Now we'll just have to wait and see if Georgia's going to do that to everybody, or maybe Oregon is just not very good.
Anything else stand out to you? Oh, I forgot to mention a fan came up and gave you a button that he had from the first game.
They left it here at the restaurant.
Yeah.
Yes, Gators versus Cowboys. That was Oklahoma State, 1990. And I told Billy Napier, I said,
"Welcome back, Steve" on it.
Yeah, I did.
If you can see that.
Yeah. I told Billy, I said, you got a chance to do what we did back in 90, and that's win the first game and become ranked. Now, will we be in the top 25 tomorrow when it comes out?
Yeah, it comes out tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
They have to wait for that game.
Yeah.
I think they will be. I don't think they'll be very high, but they beat the number 7 team, and I wouldn't drop Utah very far either.
No.
You know? I mean, I'd drop Notre Dame a little bit, but not too
so.
far. They didn't play terribly.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can climb into the 25. And I told him he had a chance to do what we did, and we were out of it before this game, and then we stayed in it for 12 years after that. So he's got a chance to do that, and he may do it. Everybody likes Billy Napier. I tell you what, he's a good guy, and he really looks out for his players. And one guy one time said, all players – of course, they want to play for themselves and their teammates and their parents and maybe even the fans, but they got to want to play for their coach.
Right.
If their coach is a dumbass sort of guy, yells and screams all the time and cusses, they don't want to play for their coach. And Billy, he's got a bunch of guys, and if you watch them practice, they're more encouraging. They get on the guys when they need getting on, but they're more pumping them up. You can do this, you can play better, and so forth. So. I think Scott Strickland hired a really good coach, and of course time will tell. And it's going to be a big test this week, and I know he knows it, and everybody knows it, and we'll be ready. I think we'll be ready to play a good one.
It was the smile on his face after that interception. It was just you don't want to go up there and hug him. You know, he was so relieved that they'd won, and we haven't seen much emotion from him, and that was about as much as we've seen.
Yeah, well, he's the play caller, as you know, and I'll tell you another thing. When he was letting that clock run down on that 4th and 2 we had, the announcer said, "What's he doing? What's he doing? He's behind." They didn't know he's behind, and at the time I sort of thought, "Well, what is he doing? We're behind." And then he started figuring it out. He wanted to score with about 20 seconds left.
Exactly.
If we make the 4th and 2. If we don't make the 4th and 2, we're out anyway. So and then obviously I think we made the 4th and 2. We ran it down to about the 4-yard line, and he scored a little too quickly. Yeah. And but you can't kill the play and tell your guy not to score.
It kind of reminded me of FSU '97 when you were afraid to score too quickly.
Well. Yeah, we had to put our defense out there. We were pretty good at that time. Yeah, Fred Taylor scored on 2 runs after we got to the 20, then the 4, and then he took it on in, I guess. But, and we got a pick. Dwayne Thomas got the pick to end that game. But anyway, that was a good move by Coach Napier to let that clock run down a bit. And but obviously, if they'd had more time at the end of the game, maybe they would not have thrown that pass. Maybe they would have run it because we were spread out, sort of zoning the field down there on the goal line on that interception. So they felt like they'd had to throw it in, and we got the pick.
They should have math classes for all these players too, though, because you saw that North Carolina game where the onside kick and the guy runs it all the way back, and all it does is put them up 8. The other team can come back and tie you. If you go to the ground, the game's over. And we saw that with Malik Davis and I think Vanderbilt's. Some other games that they don't think that way because you can't help. Once you get going, you don't want to stop, you know?
Yeah, it's when you're up by 1 point, in the NFL, when a team's up by 1 point, if they're behind, they let the other team score. That's their only chance. And then, of course, they tell the guy, don't score. And they guy runs in the end zone.
Exactly.
And we were playing Tennessee. Oh, you talk about a long time ago, Pat, 1982. They had Reggie White, a defensive end, Willie Gault, and we snuck into Knoxville in '82, opening game, and they weren't ready to play Dookies. And so anyway, we got them 25-24. They've used all their timeouts, and we're on the 1 yard line on the goal line, and there's about a minute left. So we got to take a knee to win it. And they used their last timeout. And Ben Bennett, I said, listen, they're probably going to get out of the way. Don't you dare take that thing in the end zone. You hear me? Don't do it. Don't go in there waving around, because Ben can be a little hot doggish.
I knew Ben, yeah, knew him very well.
Fortunately, they stayed up there, and we took a knee right there. But the other team should just get out of the way and hope that guy said, oh, man, I can go score a touchdown. And that's what the North Carolina kid, he says, man, I can score a touchdown.
That's right.
And they probably hadn't talked about it. So you have to go over. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. That LSU game last night. Oh, the end of that game was unbelievable. Also,
it was incredible. Yeah,
it really was.
Unbelievable. All right, Coach. Well, it's great having you in here again on Monday. It's always brought to you by Meldon Law and the Meldon Law Gator Studios at Steve Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, where
I think we're going to be louder. The fans are going to be louder this week.
Well,
this is a bigger game. This
is a bigger
conference.
Game. Yeah.
Eastern Division Conference game. Kentucky, they beat us last year. They're sort of bragging about beating the Gators in football now. What's our record the last 3 years or so?
Against them?
Yeah.
Well, it's 2-2 the last 4.
Like 2-2, yeah.
Yeah.
So
and they should have lost the one that was when Franks got knocked out.
We had won like 32 in a row.
32 in a row.
32 in a row. Now we're 500 last 4 years.
Yeah.
So they're coming down here with confidence. So we need to get the fans, and I know our fans will be ready for this one also.
By the way, I did enjoy after the game my 1966 beer. It was very good.
It is good beer, isn't it?
It was very good.
It
tasted like winning.
Yeah, it was very similar to the beers I used to drink and so forth. I still do occasionally, I guess. But that HBC 1966, it is a good tasting beer, I think. First Magnitude put it together.
Yeah, they did.
So,
it was good.
Anyway.
It was
All
good.
right.
All right, we'll be back with Coach next Monday. Right now, we got to take a break and come back and do all of our fun things. Hesser and Kipke, the Leonardo's quick picks, the Adams Ribco to go, Gator of the Weekend, all that stuff. We'll be right back here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adams Ribco to go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adams Ribco to go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Pat Dooley's Story Time is brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics. Nobody knows how to provide pediatric health care for little gators better than Dr. Mike and the other board-certified pediatricians and the pediatric nurse practitioners of Eastlake Pediatrics. They have been providing personalized health care to the children of Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough counties since 2004. And with the recent addition of Dr. Chris, who is also board certified in sports medicine, they are now offering care for youth sports injuries as well. To learn more about Eastlake Pediatrics, call 727-372-6760. And to get to know them better, listen to Dr. Mike and Dr. Carey on their Peds and Pop podcast on multiple platforms. Gator football is back, and the best way to get exclusive insight is a membership in the Gainesville Quarterback Club. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you access to speakers like coaches, Gator greats, and more. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-person meetings, or for non-locals via Zoom with an out-of-town membership. Right now, out-of-town memberships are only $150. Sign up by September 3rd and get entered to win 2 Champions Club tickets to Homecoming versus Missouri, speaker presentations, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org or call me, Pat Dooley, and I'll get you to the right people. Okay, and welcome back to another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. And joining us now, because it's time for us to play our favorite game, Yes, No Way, or Maybe. I say that about every game we play, but Yes, No Way, or Maybe. Robbie Andrew, who is brought to you by Hesser and Kipke, and he is coming to you on the Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line. Robbie, how are you?
Good, Pat. How are you?
We had the ball coach in here just a minute ago. He had a little zip in his step.
Was he happy about that game the other night?
Pretty happy, pretty happy. By the way, underneath your name, instead of Codger, I had him put retiree.
Oh, that's good.
That's what
I'm a retired Codger.
All right, let's play Yes, No Way, or Maybe with Robbie Andrew.
Okay, let's play.
On the Big Mills Zoom line. And don't forget, it is sponsored by Big Mills. And if you go by there and you want to get something to eat, as everybody does, I bet they were packed on Saturday. You can get free fries with the order if you just mention you listen to Another Dooley Noted Podcast. All right, Robbie, yes, no way, or maybe. Number one, Arkansas is the third best team in the SEC.
I'm going to say no way. I thought they were okay, but they didn't. I don't think they're the third best team in the SEC.
Well, who's better, though?
Not LSU.
No, not LSU. No, you can't say that.
I would put Florida ahead of them right now. I think Florida's got more offensively than Arkansas does.
I tell you what,
they didn't impress me. They didn't impress me that much.
All right, that's why you said no
So
way.
I'm gonna say,
You're the
I'm
one
saying
answering
no
the
way,
questions. All right.
Yeah.
Number two.
Yeah, I would give them a little time, Pat. Let them play a little more before I start ranking where they would be.
Yeah, I
no,
was
not
impressed
for
with Mississippi State. I thought they played pretty well.
Yeah.
But again, who they were playing was a matter. All right, number
I thought
two.
Florida played okay.
Yeah, Florida played okay. Number two on Florida on yes, no, where, maybe. Florida at the end of this season will have more rushing yards than passing yards.
I'm going to say a maybe on that, Pat. you've got a running quarterback who ran for over 100 yards. You had two other guys that rushed for like 70 and 64 yards. So I think Napier loves to run the ball, and they showed real signs of being a pretty good running team the other night. I think they're only going to get better in that regard, especially with, Richardson putting pressure on defenses with his ability to do both, run and throw.
Yeah.
So, more rushing yards.
It's going to be interesting to see how the offense evolves, because eventually people are just going to crowd up there if you're only running the ball and not throwing deep balls. So maybe we'll see more deep balls this week. All right, number 3 on Yes, No, Where, maybe Florida State is better this year.
I would say yes, they are, Pat, but it's hard to judge them because they played a crappy team in the opener, and that was the worst LSU performance I can ever remember in a long time, Pat. They looked poorly coached. They muffed 2 punts. They had a field goal block, an extra point block. And the funny thing is that he said at the half or before the start of the second half, I don't think we could play any worse than we did in the first half. But you know what? They did. They were worse in the second one.
They did.
Let me look like an LSU team.
Let me get a quick thought of what you thought of. Obviously, I know what you think about the game and the win for Florida, but that Utah team was as advertised. They're a good football team.
They're really good, Pat. They came out in the second half and they said we're going to run the ball, and they put 6 offensive linemen out there, and they were hard to stop. And that quarterback, he's a player, Pat. He's really good, and I think they're going to win the rest of their games.
That's what I think.
If I'm Florida, my big concern coming out of that would be the inability on defense to stop the run. You're going to face a Kentucky team this week that likes to run, so they got to work on that a lot.
Only got 10 plays in the third quarter, Florida, and they had a great drive. But it started on their own one. So,
ball control.
Anyway, it was an interesting game and certainly an interesting night. All right, Robbie, we'll let you go. By the way, okay, I don't want you to give away the story, but my East Lake Pediatrics story is going to be about the wings of Tempe. The wings of Tempe.
That's a great one.
We'll tell that.
That is a great one.
All right,
you're going in.
All right, Robbie. Thanks a lot, buddy. We'll see you.
Hey,
Yes,
Pat,
Nowhere,
we'll
Maybe. Brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteaks, and of course, Robbie's appearance are brought to you by Hesser and Kipke, which means it must be time for Hesser and Kipke's 3 things. We always love Hesser and Kipke's 3 things, and I think I was texting Ken. Well, it's all of our great sponsors are becoming great friends, so I'm constantly texting during games with them and stuff and other things. So the reader, can we get the reader up? I think we need to go back to that paper. Like they need to go to paper tickets for games. All right, the 3 things is brought to you by Hesser and Kipke, a law firm based in Hale Plantation, specializing in employment, workers' comp, and family law. Visit their website at www.hklawfl.com or call Ken and Jennifer 352-339-9920. All right, number 1 on Hesser and Kipke, 3 things. Utah had a bad night, okay? We talked about this earlier. Their flight got delayed. Actually, they sat on the tarmac for 4 hours after losing this heartbreaking game. I'm sure thinking about it. Then they got taken off the plane. Their plane was broke, and Florida found them rooms and everything. I talked about that before. They had how about the day Virginia Tech had? Virginia Tech got beat by Old Dominion again, which has happened before. That was the other game that we were talking about. That was a great game to watch in that noon slot. It was a lot of fun. But then they also got stuck in an elevator going to the game. They got stuck in an elevator, and they also had a bunch of stuff stolen from their locker room. Was Jabbar Gaffney around? No. Jabbar Gaffney did do that. Fairness. Jabbar Gaffney did do that to a high school during a high school state playoff game and got punished for it. But so that was a bad day. I think that's as bad. I don't know. Is that worse than the Utah one? Pretty close. All right, number 2 on Hesser and Kipke's 3 things. Interesting development in LSU. Of course, we know what happened last night with the game. But Kayshon Boutte has deleted everything on his Instagram page that has to do with LSU. Now, he wasn't happy. He did have a couple of drops, but they hardly targeted him in that game. FSU tried to take him out. So he was not happy at all. In fact, I'm going to get to this with the Adams Ribco to go Gator of the weekend, but I'm going to go ahead and give this to you now. The loser of the weekend was LSU, not only with the loss, but to lose it the way they did with 2 muff punts, 2 by the same guy, and 2 blocked kicks, a blocked field goal and a blocked extra point that would have tied the game and sent it to overtime. I don't think there's any fan base in America that couldn't go to sleep Saturday night, with more turmoil than the LSU fans. You had to lay there and go, what are we doing? And, of course, now they're all going, we should have gotten Napier. Why didn't we go get Napier? At the time when those hires were made, they were all going, man, we got Brian Kelly, and you guys got where Nate was Napier. They were making fun of Florida. Not today they aren't. Not today they aren't. And finally, number 3 on Hesser and Kipke's 3 things. Google it, go on Twitter, find it. There's a picture out there. It's not hard to find of the attendance at the Rose Bowl for the UCLA Bowling Green game. Now, I know that Chip Kelly did not want to be the mayor of Gainesville or the governor of Florida or whatever he said it was to Scott Strickland. He didn't want a lot of attention. Buddy, you don't have much attention. They announced the crowd at 25,000. It looks more like 5,000. It's unbelievable how little attendance there was for that game. But hey, that's what you wanted. You wanted to be the 8th biggest story in town, which is what you are. Even though you got a lot better team this year, everybody thinks you're going to be good. You got what you wanted. Sometimes maybe you shouldn't ask for everything. That is our Hesser and Kipke 3 things, presented, of course, by Hesser and Kipke. All right, it's time to get our Adams Ribco to go Gator of the weekend. And guys, I'm giving 3 of them out. 3 certificates, mental certificates, let's put it that way. 1 to the offensive line. Offensive line was something I said I had to be shown. Well, I was shown that. They blocked well against a really good defensive line. They did. Richardson had almost no trouble. There was a couple plays where they got in on him. They blocked the run really well, to pick up all the yards. That block Tarquin had, that reach block on Montrell Johnson's touchdown was great. So I give it to them. I give it to the fans. You guys were part of it. You deserve a game ball. And then I give it to Anthony Richardson. And look, this is what the deal is. If Anthony Richardson stays healthy, Florida might be really good. That's how good he is. And you saw that. We all saw it. We all knew it was possible, but now we've seen it against a really good team. And that is exciting. So that is our Adams Ribco Gator of the weekend. You know what I did Saturday afternoon? I was starving. I was thinking about making myself a sandwich. I went, no, let's go to Adams Ribco to go. Everybody's already left for the game. I go to Adams Ribco, get a beautiful turkey plate. Just heaven. Heavenly, I'm telling you. All right, let us get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. Last chance to get in. A lot of people got in this week for the contest. We're going to go ahead and pull one Friday, a winner on Friday. And so there's only one game. Rams at the Bills. That's all you got to do. Rams at the Bills. The Bills are getting 2.5 points. It's your last chance to get in and be qualified for this next pick on the Leonardo's at Millhopper quick pick. So that's all you got to do. Rams at Bills, -2.5. That's a Thursday night game. And it is, I'll tell you in a minute where it is because we have to get to the Gainesville Quarterback Club games of the week, I'm sorry, which we do every Monday, and then games of the week on a Friday. By the way, Laura Rutledge will be the speaker for the Gainesville Quarterback Club on Tuesday night, tomorrow night. Looking forward to seeing her. I'm pretty sure it's a Zoom meeting, but we'll still see her. She'll be right there, and she's so busy. But there's not a whole lot going on this week. I told you that we're done with Thursday night college games for a couple of weeks. That are any good. But there is a college game tonight, which isn't going to be any good. It's at 8 o'clock, ESPN, Clemson at Georgia Tech. I think Clemson will kill them and kind of make a statement. Georgia Tech's not very good. And then there's the Thursday night game that I mentioned before, Buffalo at the Rams. 8:20 is the time of that game. It's on NBC. So that's your Gainesville Quarterback Club games of the week. And I could talk about a little baseball, but yeah, Braves creeping back in there. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. But I have to get to, before we get out, we are running just a little bit late, Pat Dooley's Story Time, brought to you by East Lake Pediatrics. We appreciate East Lake Pediatrics. I know Mike was at the game. Chris Harry, Robbie Andrew, I think Mitch Stacy, who used to work at the Gainesville Sun, was out there, and Ron Kaspritsky. I think those were the 5 people. So we ordered, just as an appetizer, we were having some beers, just as an appetizer, some wings, 10 wings, right? So as the cook is going back, I think it was Ron Kaspritsky said something derogatory about the chef, and I can't say it, but saying that he was wimpish, like, and saying he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the game to make us cry and sweat and everything. Bad decision. Bad decision. We get these wings. We were there probably 3 hours. We didn't finish them. They were so hot, and it would literally be like somebody would just go, "I'm going in." And you just watch him eat them, and also tears and sweat. They were the hottest wings in history. The next day, Mitch Stacy, putting his contacts in, had a little speck of that juice on the finger. You could hear him yell all over the hotel, just screaming, "Ah!" Pretty bad. Those were the wings of Tempe. Something we love telling that story. It's fun. And the one reason I brought it up is because it feels like it's a good feeling to be a Gator fan again, And I think you go back to years like '95 when they ran the table to get to Tempe. It didn't work out that game, but still, and then the next year. So now you're starting to think about championships again. That's the way I am. By the way, if I was doing the playoff, I would move or doing the rankings. I would have Georgia ahead of Ohio State. I think Georgia should be number 2. Anyway. I'm still looking for a sponsor for our rankings. We'll work on that. And what we need to work on is getting out of here, because we're making Jason and Tammy have to hang around too long because it's after 1 o'clock. But you guys, you got it. You got bonus time. You never know when you're going to.